How to own the inner child and break free of the anxious attachment. It's like when you're a mother and the baby is crying, and you pick up the baby and you hold the baby in your arms. Your pain, your anxiety is your baby. You have to take care of it. You have to go back to yourself to recognize the suffering in you. Embrace the suffering and you get a relief. So there's a part in all of us that yearns to belong. This is our safety, our security. It means we can relax, that others are there to hold us, cherish us, praise us, and keep guard when we can't. It means we matter. Now, when we've experienced a single relational disconnection, we generally recover. But when it becomes a pattern, when someone who is supposed to be there for us finds ways to disengage or disappear on a daily basis, recovery feels intangible and unattainable. We make decisions about the self saying, I'm not wanted, I must be flawed. So the anxious attachment says, you're not giving me enough. Landing on the anxious side of attachment are often where they are seeking others as a way to regulate their overwhelm for themselves. They will feel clingy, and when living in this mode, many feel easily rejected or abandoned and become angry when partners fail to live up to your perceived expectations. And on guard, attuned to the signs of others leaving, they easily fall into, internal panic and exhibit protest behaviors in futile attempts to elicit a caring response from the avoidant. And they may guilt or blame partners into submission, or choosing to argue or continue arguing because it feels like better than no connection at all, because preoccupation allows no other choice. And many in this mode, give up their own desires in attempts to win their partner's approval, and placing survival needs over authenticity. And the real identity of their partner is often less relevant than the fact that the partner presents as available just often enough for the preoccupied one to maintain an illusion of love. And this can leave their partners feeling like disposable placekeepers, while for the anxious one, self-justification creates an argument. I would not put this much effort into someone who was not the one. And some refer to this as fantasy bonding, in love with the idea of the person, often ignoring the uncomfortable parts or the red flags. And many anxiously attached individuals recognize in, the calmer moments after the fact, they've been so involved with their own discomfort and dysregulation that they've failed to catch, unspoken, emotional cues from partners that might have led to feelings of mutual connection and intimacy. Sometimes the panic itself becomes the enemy, and then the anxious person develops strategies to hide or contain it, saying if others see this panic, they will leave. And this message itself perpetuates internal conflict, self against self, amplifying pain as internal parts, polarize. And while many trapped in anxiety function excessively in the presence of others, which can be perceived by others as demanding, when alone they may find tasks difficult to complete. And sometimes in the absence of constant reassurance, they find their motivation is dissolved. They may recognize an absence of perceived selfhood, the presence of the other. And as familiar as the relational desperation becomes, they might find that when real intimacy is offered, they do not know how to be with it. It falls flat. They may tell themselves they're just bored. They might distract themselves from it or sabotage it. It invokes too much shame, bringing to awareness parts of the self that do not know how to meet. Now, many theories describe the creation of anxious attachment, citing both nature and nurture. And one of the foremost frames the caregiver as someone overwhelmed by their child's emotion. And it might be parent who appreciates or loves the baby while also feeling out of sync and helpless. And as if there's no way to calm the baby. And this is unfortunate misattunement or inaccurate empathy. The baby, of course, gets more attention when crying, thus training it to use tantrums as a primary way to elicit attention and meet its security needs. Another theory, one could work in conjunction with, the caregiver who carries abandonment wounds actively, even subconsciously, creates dependence in their child, ensuring the child will need them and remain with them. And the child of this parenting strategy is thus trained to remain a child, to take a dependent role in intimate relationships in order to get needs met. Those on the anxious side of the attachment fight in and for, the relationship, feeling incapable of calming until another person meets their needs for assurance. And this often leads to long-term deterioration of the relationship as their partners learn to, distance and resent rather than pursue seemingly endless conflict. And this withdrawal by partners may perpetuate negative beliefs. They're trying to leave me. I'm not lovable. I have to make my emotion bigger to get a response. Because in this mode, we're trying to elicit that attention, and then the other person resents you in this mood because it means they lose a partner and gain a child, and then you become the parent. You become the fix, and then your existence is no longer yours. You're no longer free or whole or separate from the other. And with nobody in you to meet me, I am trapped and alone. Your dependence becomes a weight for me to carry. It's like a child in you with nowhere to go. And sometimes it feels like an insatiable bully, entitled, demanding that I care for it. But it has no sense of time. And you could meet with it for hours, resenting you each minute, and nothing changes. I want to be loved, not needed. Part of me also yearns to be taken care of. So in moments of interpersonal conflict, many of us switch to these younger states of mind. We disconnect from present day resources, reacting not to partners, but to parents. Even with adult partners, we return to perceptions, expectations, and strategies learned at an early age. We become the child in the empty room, feeling ourselves empty until it fills us once again. Or we become the child playing in our room, safe, away from the needs or threats of others through the house, hoping no one comes into the door. In order to heal and decrease dependence on others, those on the anxious end of the spectrum will find them exploring ways to build an internal support structure, some part of the self that remains strong and dependable, unthreatened by the intense emotion. And this might be framed as self-validation or, your internal parent. And in the beginning, though, they naturally seek others, friends, partners, therapists to provide the support, validation, and witnessing. This isn't the way my life is supposed to be. We are supposed to be able to depend on others. And some may recognize a resentment of, therapy work and even shame in it. They may view self-sufficiency or self-soothing as a secondary strategy only used when one fails to belong in the world. And they may feel conflict internally and with, their therapist, feeling blamed while also feeling victimized in relationship. And it's like, I'm the one who feels so devastated when people leave me. Yet, you're saying I play a part in that. And we do. We absolutely do. Each person in each relationship, we've all had parts in this play. And if we reframe this preoccupation as the ongoing abandonment feelings of an inner child, we begin to differentiate from the part feeling the pain. And this is important to the present day adult who feels hijacked by emotions. It's also vitally important for the hurting child or the old neural network that takes over to have a compassionate internal witness. And if we reframe and it is so hard to take ownership of that child inside, noticing that it reaches out to make demands of others. It's just a natural step when it finds no internal caregiver available. That unspoken message from a parent saying, I can't handle this child. I need somebody else to take care of it. When emotion is high and the old state is triggered, you eventually actually hate the child inside you. And they hand this emotional part of self out to others saying, friends, family, partners, I can't handle this child in me. It's too much. You have to take care of it. It's important to begin separating parts in this way, to speak in a third person variety, to gradually hear the dialogue already occurring between the child and the parent in you. And it is a necessary component of self-soothing. We cannot witness a part when we are that part, and it requires some distance and effective witnessing requires the development of an internal other person. And developing internal parts is something most of us have already done many times throughout our life. And we've developed internal guards and gatekeepers, judges, parents. These are the parts that judge and contain us today. And then we can also develop an internal witness, one that does not judge, is not threatened by any of our emotions, doesn't attack us, pull away, pity, analyze, or try to fix it. One that meets us with empathy and compassion to witness our pains and joys in the way we always wished the other part of us would. And an intentionally developed part is just as valid as the parts that developed automatically in life. The compassion and affirmation we can give ourselves is just as real and valid as the internal abuse we already trust. It's an internal dialogue between parts of the self. Mindfulness has been very important to me to practice, and you can increase your present moment awareness, of our activation level. And when it gets too high, it's okay to take a break and step away, from the internal argument. Like, seeing it first is the number one step. There's like denial, acceptance, grief, all that, the 5 stages of what, you gotta connect with resources to help your body calm. And life looks different on the other side of the nervous system. And another way to tell if you're, activated, like, can you hear someone's no and not take it personally? It's important to begin recognizing the elements of fantasy in your relationships. Do you want an equal partner? Are there moments you really want to be taken care of? And most of us experience both. And this struggle is very common. It's human. And what I want you to take away from this video and what I'm personally working on, because I grew up feeling alone, lonely, bullied, abandoned, completely lost, that no one would give me attention in any shape or form. Even if I were to get in trouble, I had never been grounded in my life. I'd get yelled at, and then everybody separate in the house, and then that'd be the end of it. And I was just like, nobody cares. Nobody cares what the hell I do. Good, bad, nothing. Literally everything I've accomplished in my life was to be done for myself, and I knew that, and that's what I had to do for me. And yet, you still look for the approval of others, your parents, your family, your lover. You want to be wanted, and that's a real struggle. That's a huge struggle for me, because when things start getting distant in relationships, I want to now grab on and hold as tightly as possible. Thus, when you do so, they get suffocated and they run. And it was just the way that I was brought up that it feels like every time now, usually I don't, this is my first time like clinging for like dear life in a relationship, and it's hard because we mirror each other so hard. And it's difficult because I feel we have a lot of the same issues, though I'm more open about it. And I'm just really trying to work on myself, and that's all I can do. And I know that it is helping him in ways too. And I think it's helping others by me even talking about these things, you know, to bring them into the light for us to think about. Just being mindful of our parts. If you like these videos and you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I'm always putting new ones out, and if I can help heal another person, another family, then that fulfills my heart. I love you guys.